Hey, hey, welcome to the show. On today's episode, it's a little bit weird. It's actually a cut from the previous episode, the news episode this week, because we talked about the TypeScript 6.0 beta release. And as we were going through the blog post, it started to get really long, and we're like, okay, maybe we need to cut this and put it into its own episode so that we can actually show the blog post, and you'll see that on the left side of the screen. So you can look forward to that. Now, the beginning of it, the first 10-15 minutes, is actually the same as the previous episode, but you'll actually see the screen too. So it should be a little bit more clear. Plus, I didn't want to assume that you actually listened to the weekly episode, just in case. But then we go through every single deprecation and breaking change in the blog post. So you can see the code snippets, and you can get our thoughts on it in a little bit more detail. So this is more of a deep dive episode. Highly recommend the Typed Rocks TypeScript 6.0 video, which is linked in the show notes, and it's also on our YouTube channel on our recommended Cool Watch playlist. So we add any of the YouTube videos that we mentioned on the show on that playlist. This is also an experiment to see what it's like to do this on video. So maybe we'll do this more. We'll see. All right. Have a good one. I'll see you in a second. Welcome to TypeScript FM, the friendly podcast for TypeScript developers where we bring you news, updates, and interviews from the community with plenty of tomfoolery sprinkled in. I'm your host, Kamran Ayub, and I'm joined by my co-host and best bud, Eric Onerheim. Together, we're the two TypeScript fools. Welcome to the show.
There's a lot of stuff in here to digest. TLDR, this is the bridge release between the current version of TypeScript and TypeScript 7.0,
yes,
which is going to be the Go-based. So some of the big features in 6, apart from being this bridge, is now they have less context sensitivity on thisless functions. That's THIS -LI. I can't spell.
You can't spell. It's thisless. So
thisless functions.
You know the this keyword? It's functions without the this keyword.
Yes.
So I think it's a little hard to explain, and this might be easier if you go look at the blog post because there's a bunch of code examples. But essentially, this just makes TypeScript a bit less sensitive to the this keyword so that it can better understand and infer the types of function parameters.
That's right. Yeah. So in some of their examples, the arrow function worked without errors, and then if you have the method syntax, you would get errors. And this just helps make things just work a little smoother.
Yeah. So I guess if you do use a lot of function syntax instead of arrow function syntax or method syntax, this helps you.
Yeah.
Cool.
Definitely.
Cool. Next up, they added the ability to do subpath imports that start with a hash symbol. And so this was added to Node first, and now TypeScript supports this. You can add to your package JSON. There's a field called imports, and it's similar to the paths alias type stuff. So you could say hashtag root/star should map to, my dist directory /star. And it says this allows modules in your package to import from hashtag root instead of having to use a relative path like .. So it's like path aliases, right? And the thing is that previously you could not use the hashtag symbol for root aliases in TypeScript, and now that's fixed in 6.0.
TypeScript is also combining moduleResolution bundler, which is a type of module resolution behavior, like how do I find modules, with module common JS. And module is just the, what kind of module are we using? Like how are we shipping packets of code around?
Yep.
So this PR removes the restriction preventing module resolution bundler from being used with module type CommonJS. So the error messages now include CommonJS as a valid module option with the bundler resolution.
Okay.
This will affect people mostly in the Webpack. My code is just working space. Don't break me. So there's that. TLDR, this is another combination of settings that you can have that are valid. And it makes sense. If you are using, if you're using Common in the past, your code has been working, and you're moving forward, this just helps you move into the future.
Okay, so if I was in this scenario, I might need to update my TSConfig so that I set module resolution bundler and then CommonJS as my module type.
Yeah. And in their blog post, they say what you probably want to do is you want to look at planning a migration out of this situation. If you're using module CommonJS, remember CommonJS is old school.
That's the require statement.
Yeah. You probably don't want to be using CommonJS. But if your code's working, it's working, right? But what you probably want to do is you want to move to either nodenext or preserve or something else. You want to plan a migration off of CommonJS, TLDR.
Yep. Because Node.js and Bun and Dino, they all support ECMAScript imports now. ECMAScript modules. So this is a migration path. The next flag is a new flag in the config called stable type ordering. This is intended to assist if you want to move from 6.0 to 7.0. So I'll just read what it says. But it says, today, TypeScript assigns type IDs, which are internal tracking numbers, to types in the order they are encountered, and uses these IDs to sort union types in a consistent manner. A similar process occurs for properties. As a result, the order in which things are declared in a program can have, possibly, surprising effects on things like declaration omit. This is really interesting because I'm pretty sure that we've run into this trying to use TSGo for Excalibur, and when I did a diff of the declaration files, some of the ordering of different types were different. And so this is something that you might want to turn on so that you can get ready to go to 7.0. And so if you turn on stable type ordering, then it's going to do some fancy stuff to stabilize the way that it orders the types, but that could result in different declaration omit changes. So you're going to want to test it.
Yeah, and this is kind of, I think where this might affect you principally is like DX. So depending on the ordering of your types, you might get suggestions in different orders. So this is definitely something to take a look at, and I think it's something that you're probably going to want to hammer on in the editor.
Yes, yep. And it does say if you encounter a type error using stable type ordering, it's typically going to be due to inference differences. So the previous inference without stable type ordering happened to work based on the current ordering of types in your program, which is, just as a side effect, it worked. But to help with this, you'll often benefit from providing an explicit type somewhere. And often this will be a type argument or a variable annotation for an argument you intend to pass into a call. So that's why it's under a flag, because it could change your code and it could cause a breaking change. But you'll want to turn this on if you do intend to migrate to TypeScript 7.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think this is going to be a soft B break. Again, because I feel like this is going to mostly affect you in a DX situation. It might affect you in the inference, like you said, and you might fail, depending on the complexity of your types, I imagine.
Okay, so some features, a couple new features. There's now an ES 2025 option for Target and Lib. So while there are no new JavaScript language features in ES 2025, this new target does add new types for built-in APIs like RegExp.escape and moves a few declarations from esnext into ES 2025 like promise.try, iterator methods, which is pretty cool, and set methods. So that's pretty nice. So if you want to, downgrade from esnext, you could do ES 2025 as your new stable target if you want to. But obviously you don't have to. But the next set of new types is pretty cool because we have been talking about Temporal, and Temporal has been now released in all major browsers except Safari.
Womp womp.
Yep, but there are now new types for Temporal in TypeScript 6.0. So it says here that the long-awaited Temporal proposal has reached stage 3 and is expected to be added to JavaScript in the near future. TypeScript 6.0 now includes built-in types for the Temporal API, so you can start using it in your TypeScript code today via Target esnext or lib esnext. Or you could also import the lib temporal.esnext if you really want to be more granular.
Next up is new types for the Upsert method, which is not what it's called. You couldn't see, but I was doing quotes with my fingers. It's called get or insert, but this is doing that common pattern where you're checking for a key, and if key doesn't exist, you're going to set it with the default value.
Yep.
So this is just extremely common, so common that we've added it to ECMAScript.
Yeah, and this is specifically on map and weak map.
That's right.
Cool. What's interesting is we didn't talk about this previously, but there's also get or insert computed.
Yeah, no, I totally missed that when that was coming through.
So you can get or insert computed, and then you can have a callback that computes some expensive value.
Yeah, kind of like a lazy computation of this expensive value.
Yeah,
so if you need to get it,
yeah,
if you never wind up getting the default. Lastly, we have types for RegExp.escape, and this is just nice when you want to escape something in your regex, and you don't have to think about it very high. You remember when we used to do MySQL escape or that kind of thing? This is the same idea. You can escape special regular expression characters like wildcard plus question mark, yada, 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 without having to worry about you accidentally vulnerability your regular expression.
Yeah. So this is, I think, really common if you need to substitute some expression, like a sub-expression inside of your regex string. You can run it through RegExp.escape, and it'll make sure that whatever input you're going to substitute has the right escape characters in there.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I often feel like I need to escape regex whenever I work with it. So,
yeah.
All right. What else is there? There's a few other things in here.
lib.dom now contains DOM iterable and async iterable.
Yeah.
So that's just
we talked about
that
this.
just happens. You don't have to remember to do this. That just happens.
Yeah, we talked about this on the TypeScript 6.7 episode. But dom.iterable and dom.async.iterable are now just fully included in lib.dom.d.ts. So that's kind of nice.
This one has bitten me before because I've had to reach for iterables recently a lot. And I'm like, oh, gotta include that. And now it's just part of the thing. So that'll just be nice.
Yeah. Okay. Now we finally have a bullet list of breaking changes and deprecations in 6.0. So what's interesting is that there is a new setting called Ignore Deprecations 6.0 that you can add to your TSConfig. But it says you should note that if you do use that setting, TypeScript 7.0 will not support any of these deprecated options, but this might be nice for a migration. So you can ignore all the deprecated stuff if you want to upgrade to 6.0, but if you do that, you do so at your own peril, because then you're not going to easily be able to upgrade to TypeScript 7. So a few of these shifts and stuff that they talk about since TypeScript 5.0, virtually every runtime environment is now evergreen. So true legacy environments like ES5 are vanishingly rare. That's why they have deprecated and got rid of ES5. Bundlers and ESM have become more common for new projects. So that's why they want to push you towards ESnext and node next for your module resolution instead of CommonJS.
And that's why we have this like thing we talked about earlier about CommonJS kind of bridging you to a different configuration. So if you're on CommonJS, plan to get off of it.
Yes. I think will be really interesting for listeners is to maybe go down the list through some of these adjustments that they make. We'll note up front that many projects will need to do at least one of the following. Okay, so this is important. You're probably going to need to do at least one of the following. You're either going to need to set the types array in TSConfig to node, to include node, or if you need to restore TS 5.9 behavior, you can use a wildcard. But we recommend using an explicit array to improve build performance and predictability. You'll typically know this is the issue if you see a lot of type errors related to missing identifiers or unresolved built-in modules. So that's basically just adding the node typings to your types array. The other thing you might need to do is you might need to set rootDir to an actual folder, and this is actually something that we needed to do in Excalibur because we were just using dot as the rootDir. And we actually needed to set it to ./engine source or whatever ours is, but yours might just be ./source. And it says you'll often know this is the issue if you see files being written to /dist/source instead of /dist/myfile. Several compiler options now have updated default values that better reflect modern development practices. As we said, strict is now true by default. The appetite for stricter typing continues to grow, and we found that most new projects want strict mode enabled. If you were already using strict true, nothing changes for you. If you were relying on the previous default of false, you'll need to explicitly set strict false in your tsconfig.json. Next, module defaults to esnext. Similarly, the new default module is esnext, acknowledging that ESM is now the dominant module format. Okay. Target defaults to current year ES version. This is actually pretty important. The new default target is the most recent supported ECMAScript spec version. So that's effectively a floating target. So right now, that target is ES 2025. This reflects the reality that most developers are shipping to evergreen runtimes and don't need to transpile down to older ECMAScript versions. I think the implication of this is kind of interesting in that you don't need to set a target anymore if you just want to target the evergreen browsers.
Right.
So you only need to set this if you need to be explicitly supporting something that's not evergreen.
Yeah, and I'd say the only time I run into this right now is iPads. And I think I've talked about this before, but older Safari, you do want to set a target.
Yeah.
Especially if you are in an industry like I am where your users have ancient iPads that are not evergreen. They're locked to the version of iOS.
Right.
And at a certain point, this hardware can't update anymore.
Yep. So that might be another reason, you want to explicitly make sure that you target whatever your lowest common denominator browser is. Okay. noUncheckedSideEffectImports is now true by default. This helps catch issues with typos and side effect only imports. This is a common option that we typically set to true explicitly, but now you don't have to. LibReplacement is now false by default. This flag previously incurred a large number of failed module resolutions for every run, which in turn increased the number of locations we needed to watch under the -- watch flag and editor scenarios. In a new project, libReplacement never does anything until other explicit configuration takes place, so it makes sense to turn this off by default for the sake of better performance by default. So that's nice. If these new defaults break your project, you can specify the previous values explicitly in your tsconfig.json. This next one did bite us. Like I said, rootdir now defaults to dot, which is the current directory. So rootdir controls the directory structure of your output files relative to the output directory. Previously, if you did not specify a rootdir, it was inferred based on the common directory of all non-declaration input files. But this often meant that it was impossible to know if a file belonged to a project without trying to load and parse that project. It also meant that TypeScript had to spend more time inferring that common source directory by analyzing every file path in the program. So now in TypeScript 6.0, the default rootdir will always be the directory containing the tsconfig.json file. So again, this was something that we had to update because that was not our rootdir. Because we store all of our source files in like a subdirectory, but we have the tsconfig in a higher level directory. So we did have to change this. So this was a change for us too.
The next one is another performance improvement, but the types parameter now defaults to empty array. This is good because in the past it used to enumerate everything in the node modules /at types, which might not be ones you included. It might be transitive dependencies. So the whole universe could be in there, and it would affect your performance of like your transitive dependencies, but you don't care about those. So now in 6.0, the default is empty array, and it prevents projects from unintentionally pulling in the universe, which is great. But now you might likely need to specify your types. So you might need to add types node, for example, or whatever else you need to add, like jest or whatever. If you need to re-enable the old behavior where it pulled in the universe, you can throw in a wildcard there.
Yeah, so this is interesting because I think that if the package that you depend on ships types in it, you're fine, and you usually don't need to explicitly list those. But two of the examples it gives is like node and jest, because those npm packages don't ship types with them. So those are ones that you typically, do npm install @type/node or @type/jest. Before, those would just get picked up. But now you have to explicitly say, yeah, I need those types. Otherwise, it's not going to provide it for you. And as a reminder, you could use the wildcard value, but then you just get the old behavior, and so that is not going to be good for your performance.
Next, we have a whole bunch of deprecated options. The first one that we've already talked about a little bit is that the target of ES5 is going to be gone, which is great because it means your code emit. If you are going to follow the default, you'll just emit evergreen targets. But if you had an older emit, you needed to emit more code, which is potentially tougher on browsers to parse and to run, depending on what the downleveling it needed to do was.
Yeah, so the default now is the lowest target's going to be ES 2015, which is pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and that's not the default. The lowest possible target is 2015.
Yeah, sorry, the lowest possible target is 2015. The default is going to be whatever the current ECMAScript version is. So as of right now, ES 2025.
And related, downlevel iteration only has effects on ES5 emit, which is what we just said is deprecated. So that's just going to be gone.
Yeah.
So it doesn't make sense to keep around.
So just as a reminder, because I needed a reminder, downlevel iteration refers to ES 2015 adding several new iteration primitives like the for/of loop, array spread operator, argument spread operator, and symbol.iterator. Because now ES5 is gone and deprecated, downlevel iteration doesn't do anything anymore. So it's also been deprecated. You don't need it. That's right. Don't need it anymore because that's already supported in ES 2015.
Awesome. And next, we kind of already hinted at this, but a whole bunch of module resolution, Node and Node 10 are being deprecated. You're going to want to use Node Next or module resolution Node Next or module resolution bundler or whatever modern one you want to use. In addition, a whole bunch of module systems are being removed. And remember, a module resolution is the behavior of locating code. Mm-hmm. Module is the package of code. So this confusing. I know they feel like they go together, but it's not quite the case. Yeah. So module, UMD, AMD, and system are all going away. And in fact, I don't think a lot of folks use that anymore. We unfortunately do use UMD bundles still because we want to be able to drop a global on the browser window still. So that might be a thing we have to look at in Excalibur. But
well, I don't think we need to because again, if you plan to target a bundler or something that's not Node.js directly, you use moduleResolution bundler.
That's true.
And then you use your esnext or you use preserve for your module system, because then the bundler takes care of doing the UMD bundling and stuff like that.
That is right.
So we should be good. Should be good there.
Yeah, we should be good. I totally forgot about that, but yes, that's true.
That's why this is confusing, right?
Yeah.
I want to read one sentence from the blog post that I do think sort of explains it. It says, users who are using moduleResolution node should usually just migrate to moduleResolution node next if they plan on targeting Node.js directly, or moduleResolution bundler if they plan on using a bundler or bun. So I think that sort of explains it. Like if you're targeting Node directly, just use moduleResolution node next. And if you're doing anything else and you're using Vite or you're targeting bun or Dino, use moduleResolution bundler.
And as far as like module goes, you probably should be using esnext.
Yes, or preserve.
Or preserve, yes.
Yep.
Yeah, which is preserve verbatim module syntax, I believe is the one. So it's how it's written is how it is.
Yeah, it just leaves it alone. Right. It lets the bundler take care of it, which is what you want if you're using a bundler.
Yeah, and a lot of times that might be like the less magical one for you to use.
I think if you were to create a little table, like a 2-column matrix, to try to make this easier, if you are targeting anything except Node.js directly, then you just use moduleResolution bundler and module preserve. If you're targeting Node.js directly, you can use moduleResolution node next and module esnext. There you go.
There you go.
All right. baseUrl is deprecated. This is what affected us for Excalibur. So you don't need it anymore. If you want to, you have to add a path alias. If you were using baseUrl, you just add it to your paths.
In addition, the moduleResolution classic is gone. This was the bespoke, original, artisanal moduleResolution algorithm implemented by TypeScript and predated Node.js's algorithm. So this is like, no one should be using this.
Yeah.
And if you are, I'm really sorry.
Yep. This is also kind of nice. Just more settings to not have to worry about. esModuleInterop false and allowSyntheticDefaultImports false. They no longer need to be set. They were originally opt-in to avoid breaking projects. However, the behavior they enable has been recommended the default for years, so setting them to false often led to subtle runtime issues. So you just don't need to rely on them anymore. You can just get rid of them.
alwaysStrict flag. This is confusing, but this is the pragma in JavaScript, which we haven't thought about for more than a decade, and that's the string quotes at the beginning of your script file. Use strict. No one has typed those characters out in a very long time, so that's gone. That's just the default.
I don't even know if you quizzed me, what does use strict do, the directive? I probably would have been like, I'm not sure. But it says if you have sloppy mode code that used reserved words like await, static, private, or public as regular identifiers, strict mode prevents you from doing that, so you have to rename them. If you relied on subtle semantics around the meaning of this in non-strict code, you'll have to adjust your code as well. I just feel like we've been using it for so long, it hasn't affected us, unless you're like coming from a vanilla JavaScript, and then maybe you were, typing it out.
If you have ancient JavaScript, like enterprise JavaScript, this might. I feel like this might bite you potentially, but you probably weren't using TypeScript either.
That's right.
So, this is just a thing that is just a less option. Outfile has now been deprecated. This was originally the way that you would concatenate files together. You know what? Bundlers do that really well, so that's what they recommend. Use a bundler.
Nice. No more legacy module syntax for namespaces. We did talk about this a little bit. Let's say you wrote in your file module foo. That's now an error. It's deprecated. So now it's namespace foo, which I think most of us have been converted over to namespace for a long time, so I don't think that we are affected by this, but if you were using the older syntax, you're going to need to change from module to namespace.
There is a subtle caveat here, and that's declare module still works. This is the method in like your TypeScript like way of declaring, like this is ambiently available in the global. So I want to declare module something exists. This is the way you would do that
in your declaration files.
Yeah, exactly.
Or really, I mean, you can declare module in a non-DTS file too, I think.
Pretty sure you can.
Yeah, but yeah, that's not confusing at all. So
no, not yeah. So I know I panicked when they mentioned that the module keyword was going away, but I'm like, oh wait, that's how we do all of our ambient declarations. And I was like, oh wait, that's still fine.
Yes,
that's still okay. Yep.
So too long didn't read namespace. If you're not using the declare keyword, if you're using the declare keyword, declare module is fine.
The asserts keyword that was proposed to the JavaScript language is deprecated. This is now the word with. So this is the import attributes thing. So import thingy from myfile.json with type JSON. So that's the modern syntax.
You know what? I'll admit that I didn't even know that TypeScript supported this.
Yeah, the asserts thing was part of the proposal. So I think it was flagged.
Yeah.
So it's just not a thing anymore.
Cool. I don't even think I'm using import attributes anyway at this point, but hopefully soon, because not all bundlers have supported it for a while. But.
Yeah, and it will be a good thing because it removes some of the weird arcane ways that we've had to communicate to bundlers and runtimes otherwise that the contents of a file are a certain type.
Yes, like in Webpack shouting with exclamation marks that it uses raw loader. Raw loader. Yeah. Use raw loader.
Raw loader.
Yep.
Load this raw.
Not anymore. Now you can use import attributes.
This is one I haven't heard of, but the noDefaultLib directives are no longer supported, and
this is
we're largely
this is a triple slash directive.
Yeah. So you did / reference noDefaultLib equals true, and I have no idea what that did. I imagine that was like a way of manipulating the lib flag, like the libraries that you're pulling in, and libReplacement. But I've never used this, so
and that's what they say.
Good riddance.
They said that it's largely misunderstood and misused, so it's no longer supported. Don't worry about it.
Specifying command line files when tsconfig.json exists is now an error. This is just a foot gun that they fixed. So like if you have a tsconfig, you probably want to use it. So that's what this is. This is preventing you from doing that foot gun.
Nice.
Now you can go ahead and ignore the tsconfig with a new -- ignore config flag.
Nice.
So if you do need to do like a little bit of ad hoc testing something out, you can still do that with the ignore config.
That's cool. Nice. All right. Well, in the last section that they have in the blog post, so we've gone through every single deprecation that's part of TypeScript 6, which is kind of nice. So hopefully that was helpful. You should definitely read the blog post because it's a lot of stuff. But they do have a last section on preparing for TypeScript 7.0. So as a reminder, TypeScript 6 is designed as a transition release. So the options that are deprecated in TS6 will continue to work without errors if you add the ignore deprecations 6.0 TypeScript config key. But just be aware that they will be removed entirely in TypeScript 7.0. So if you're seeing deprecation warnings after upgrading to TS6, we strongly recommend addressing them before trying to adopt TypeScript 7 or its native previews in your project. As to the schedule, when is it going to come out? We plan for 7.0 to be released soon after 6.0. This should help us keep some continuity in our development with a chance to address issues sooner after the release of 7.0. So they didn't give us any dates, but, quote unquote soon. We can expect TypeScript 7. Hopefully, 2026 will be the year of TypeScript 7. Hi everyone, this is Kamran. I just wanted to thank you for listening to the show, and we hope you enjoyed the episode. If you want to see the show notes, you can check your podcast player or go to typescript.fm where you'll see a list of all the episodes. If you enjoyed the show, tell your friends and please rate it on Apple Podcasts or Spotify because that's how the show grows and gets discovered by more people. If you want to suggest news or a project that should be covered or just want to say hi, email us at feedback@typescript.fm. If you want to follow us on social, we're both active on Blue Sky. I'm at kamranicus.com and Eric is at ericonerheim.com. You can also follow the show directly at typescript.fm.